Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karen gets defeated with kindness and eventually becomes OP's girlfriend. On a quick side note, I noticed that still a large percentage of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel even though they watch daily. So if you are one of those people, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. But either way, enough time wasted, let's dive right into the stories. The best r/IDontWorkHereLady. So this is basically the gist of it. I was at the Hot Topic at my hometown mall, cringy I know, looking for a new pop figure I need to complete my collection. Since the one I needed was a Hot Topic exclusive. I saw one of the employees struggling to restock, so I decided to help him out. It was heavy stuff to lift upon the shelves, to be quite honest. Moments after, a lady about the same age as me walked up to me and showed me a picture on her phone, and she seemed frustrated. The photo was of an item that they sell exclusively at Hot Topic, the exact same pop figure I was looking for. She then proceeded to ask me,
"Can you check in the bag to see if you have this in stock, please?"
She was pretty polite, so I responded, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't work here, but I would love to help you find it." She became furious, which I can understand. She then screamed,
"I just saw you stock the shelves. Are you really that lazy that you have to tell me you don't work here?"
She then storms off, and I became concerned considering it was a misunderstanding and nothing more. Plus, she was already frustrated about the pop figure. I began to look for her so I could help her out. I found her speaking to the manager of Hot Topic.
"That's the guy I mentioned. I want this pop figure, but he refused to check for me."
I walked towards them and the manager said, "I'm sorry, but he really doesn't work here." She then looked at me, annoyed but also embarrassed, then stormed out. I walked up to the manager and inquired about the pop figure. He had 3 in stock and I purchased 2 of them. I walked out of the store, bag in hand, and walked towards the pretzel cart to get a bite to eat. I sat there for about 15 minutes, then walked towards GameStop. I wanted a new game, but that's not why I went there. As soon as I walked in, I saw the girl browsing the Pokemon section. I walked behind her and pulled out one of the pop figures, then basically displayed it in front of her face while I was behind her. She quickly turned around and saw me. Her face went from bland to totally embarrassed. I told her to take it. She began frantically apologizing while I assured her it was no big deal. Either way, I then invited her to a drink, which she agreed to. Her name is Allison, and we have been together for 2 years now. Top 10 biggest IDontWorkHereLady plot twists. And here some genius advice from Coconut Biscuits in the comments. General advice that exists: if someone is mean to you, F them. OP takes it the wrong way and gets a girlfriend. Kinda wholesome, but awkward. For this story to make sense, you should probably know that I don't have anxiety or anything, but I am very shy and awkward until I get to know people well. I'm not good at talking to strangers at all unless I've had alcohol. My boyfriend has a second part-time job doing security for concerts, baseball games and other events in our town. Wednesday night he was working a 4th of July concert, so I decided to grab some friends and go too. I had been going back and forth between hanging with my boyfriend by the gate and sitting with my friends. At one point I decided to smoke a cigarette and did not want to bother anybody, so I went over to his gate and stood on the other side, leaning against the fence. This random dude with a mullet walks up to me and says, "Dude,
"Hey, if me and my friends go to the car to get our cigarettes, can we come back in?"
Me? You would probably have to chuck your beers real quick first, because you cannot leave with alcohol. But yeah, they should let you back in." Dude bursts out laughing.
"Are you seriously telling me to chuck my beer right now?"
Me, starting to get kind of embarrassed / nervous. "Well, you don't have to, but they won't let you take it outside." Dude.
"So you're saying if I walk through this gate right now, you will let me back in?"
And then I realized he thought I was a security guard, so I was trying to put the words, "Oh, I'm not staff," together, but instead I just stuttered / blurted out, I'm not a person." Then he really busted out laughing and said,
"Oh, you're not a person? It's okay."
and hugged me. Then I told him to go ask somebody else. And my boyfriend sat from the other side of the gate the entire time, watching this awkward encounter go on and laughing. It was lovely. AKA r/.
I'm not from this planet, lady.
We will have the Karen special. So tonight I was filling in for Karen. Everything was totally normal, just getting the expected,
"Oh, Karen is not here tonight? Hey, funny seeing you here this late. And you're taking our order?"
I usually only work mornings as a host, etc, etc. Then comes in this one couple, they get put in my section and they are really nice, but when I ask them what they want to order, the lady just tells me,
"We will have the Karen special."
what on earth is a Karen special? I was kinda joking with them, telling them I'm not Karen and they need to spell it out for me, and the lady says,
"We come in here all the time and get the same thing. The cooks will know what it is."
I kinda glanced at the husband, hoping he would throw me a lifeline, but nope. So I write down on the ticket, Karen special, ? And hang it up in the window. About 2 minutes later, they are going crazy, ringing the little bell at the window, and I get a slightly less than friendly,
"What the F is a Karen special?"
I don't know, they said you would know.
Ask them what it is.
So I go back and tell them the cooks have no idea what a Karen special is, and of course,
"This is ridiculous. There's never been a problem like this when we've come in before. I want to talk to a manager."
I told her there was not a manager working this shift, but the owner was here. Unfortunately, he was too busy in the back, cooking. She huffed and puffed, forced her husband, who tried to convince her to stay out of his seat, and walked out. Like damn, would it have killed you to just say the food you eat? And it's kind of funny and scary how people can go from 0 to Karen in the time it takes to say one sentence. Update, the lady came back in this morning asking for a manager again. Of course, she was thrilled to see me again. I got the owner who was in the office. She made up a story about how when they came in last night, no one greeted them and they had to seat themselves and were ignored for 15 minutes before I finally came and gave them the rudest service they had ever received. He offered her a gift certificate, but she refused and said she just hopes he will do something about his staff. He takes me into the office, I tell him what actually happened and that they were the mystery ticket. Looking at the security camera footage, he saw that the hostess greeted them the second they walked in through the door and got them drinks immediately. About 3 minutes later, I go to take their order. Another few minutes later, I go back to the table and they leave. They were not even there for 15 minutes to be ignored that long. And I would give away every penny I own if anyone could say I was rude to them at all when they were there. Karen is out of town until Saturday, so the
Karen special
is still a mystery. Mr. Demder Demden in the comments found out what the Karen special might be. He says it was a code word, they were secret agents trying to collect the package from Karen. Karen's cover got blown and she had to escape, which is why she could not work the shift and she's now on her way to the Falklands to live the rest of her life as a goat herder named Gunter. As for the other agents, God only knows. Also, if you have watched this far, you are awesome and probably one of my loyal subscribers, and I would really appreciate if you could post some stars in the comments and like the video if you want to support me. So let's continue. Ruin my dining experience? I will ruin yours. Last night, my husband and I decided to grab some sushi. Neither of us has ever been a server, but since our parents raised us right, we always go out of our way to be awesome to service people. We told the host to seat us wherever it was easiest for him, which ended up being in a booth right between the only other 2 booths in the restaurant that were occupied. The rest of the place was dead. The first thing that I noticed was the terrible acoustics. I could not even pay attention to what my husband was saying, as I could hear the conversation on both sides of us. Whatever, we told the host we did not have a preference and I am recovering from leg surgery, so we were not going to be a pain and moved to an empty table. The second thing that I noticed was that our young waitress was also very new at her job, and I became even more distracted when one booth, occupied by who I referred to as Karen for the rest of the evening, pulled the typical Karen stunt and complained about the tempura that she was served. Who the hell orders chicken at a sushi restaurant? Karen? She proceeds to lay out all of the tricks trying to get free food, complaining when the waitress tried to take back the incorrect order and demanded to speak to the manager. Of course, when the poor girl walked away, she was on the verge of tears. I was now livid. There was no way that I was going to be able to enjoy a nice conversation with my husband after witnessing this and knowing that the acoustics were crap. I did what any upstanding patron would do. I loudly remarked what a miserable witch that Karen was and how that was the most pathetic attempt to get free food I had ever heard, and what a tragedy it would be if Karen accidentally tripped over my crutches on her way out of the restaurant. When the waitress came back, I let her know in my outdoor voice that she was doing a wonderful job and that Karen was just a very unhappy person who got off on trying to assert power over others. From then on, not a peep from Karen's booth. I enjoyed the rest of my meal and conversation with my husband, gave Karen the death stare as she walked out silently, and tipped that girl over 100% of our bill. Honestly, I love stories where people are kind to the waiter or waitress. But that leads me to a question. As opposed to most other countries, I know that tipping in America is pretty much mandatory, but how big of a tip do you guys usually give? Do you ever give more than 10 to 15%? Tell me in the comments, I'm curious. So you can shop, but I cannot? A few years back, I was a store manager for a denim brand in a big mall. One day, somebody drove into a power pole or something and one half of the mall's power went out. Luckily for my team and I, we were on the now dark side, and power outages are generally loved in retail because you have to have all customers leave the store due to safety. Then if you are lucky, it's too dark to accomplish any work. So you sit and wait and get paid. At least until an impatient customer comes along and expects the circumstances and their rules to be different for them.
It will be just us,
says the 40-something father next to his clearly embarrassed 15-ish-year-old son.
We'll be really quick. We only want to try on a couple pairs.
Bottom line and easiest excuses include, it's against policy, and or I cannot put your safety at risk. I was feeling frisky and went with, sir, even if you could see what you are doing in here, I don't have the ability to ring up your purchase. So unfortunately, no. He was annoyed, but they walked away. I had been looking into getting a new phone at the time, and like every mall, there was a cell phone kiosk right outside my store. It was daytime, so the skylights allowed me to still see my options. While talking with the cell phone guys, I get a text from a coworker inside the store. It just said, "Turn around." Standing at my store again is the man and his
"I don't want to be here"
son, and the way the man looked at me can only be described as the best resting witch face a man in cargo shorts can accomplish. After a few more minutes, I head back to my store where the man says to me,
"So you get to shop but I don't?"
Retail employees rarely get their way, so I decided to truly enjoy this moment. With the biggest, happiest of customer service smiles, I responded, "Sir, you're absolutely right. Enjoy your day." He later returned to inform me that he had bought our products at Macy's and gotten them 30% off. Oh, and that I should be ashamed of myself. To which I replied once again with the biggest of smiles, "Macy's carries our outlet line, which are 40% off online currently. I hope you enjoy our products." Sometimes the customer is not right and it feels so good. Thank you for reading my stoned recollections. I mentioned in a previous video that I will do some r/church drama again because I know you guys love it. So the next story is not gonna be from IDontWorkHereLady or Tales from Retail, but r/church drama. Story is titled Stupidest Cover Up, posted by This One Knows Things. I grew up in a strict Jewish household, the conservative sect to be specific, and we went to the only conservative synagogue in town for about 15 years. We stopped going after my brother and I were mitzvahed, means becoming an adult in the Jewish faith, and are allowed to make your own decisions regarding faith, because we had better stuff to do on our weekends. My mom would still go semi-regularly, and my dad only did to say Kaddish, which is the prayer for the dead said on the anniversary of their death. Only on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, kind of a New Year resolution day, would she force my brother and I to go. She was well involved in our synagogue too. She was a teacher and coordinator for many of the events. One day, when I was about 17, my mom came home really upset and said that she would not be going to that synagogue anymore, and later that night talked to my dad about revoking our membership. I asked what happened, but she would not say anything, only that she was really disappointed in them, and I only learned what happened when I was about 23 and we were talking about synagogues in the area. Apparently, the synagogue had been harboring a known convicted pedophile for about 10 years without telling anyone. The first known incident was when he molested a little girl in the congregation. She told her parents, who took it up with the rabbi, a Jewish head priest, and the principal, who was like the head of finances and the business end of the synagogue. Their solution was apparently to pay off the family and keep it quiet. The family took the money and left the synagogue. The man molested 3 more girls and the synagogue covered it up. After the 4th one, they finally fired him but continued to pay off the families. My mom had casually noticed some weird irregularities with the synagogue's finances when she had asked about getting money to do some updates to the classroom. Then one of the girls finally came forward and spoke about it during a gathering, and the word spread like wildfire and the synagogue lost half their congregation. There is a statute of limitations in my state, so the a-hole cannot be tried for it, but last I heard he had to move out of state cause of the much deserved harassment and death threats. The real kicker is, he was not a clergyman, he was the goddamn janitor. The synagogue chose to cover up and harbor a convicted pedophile, and he was not even a clergyman, he was not even Jewish. To this day, I have no idea why they covered it up. They should have just fired him, apologized to the family and compensate them, but instead they dug their own grave. I mean, even if they wanted to preserve their image, wouldn't it have been better to just pay the victims' families and to admit their mistake than to try and cover something like this up? But who knows, maybe the janitor had some deep connections within the synagogue. But anyway, let's continue. When the pastor from a church I'd been to twice were more empathetic than the priest at the church I had went to my whole childhood. Time for backstory. I was raised in a Catholic family and we went to church almost every weekend. I also went to a Catholic school that was connected to the church that we went to on Sundays. It was very traditional and almost cold. The priests were polite but not very interactive with the congregation outside of Mass. When I was 10, my mom was really sick. She was in the hospital for almost a year at this point in time, and I was being completely raised by my grandparents. A girl on my softball team had invited me to come to her church with her on Wednesday nights for a mini mass and a youth group. I did not have a lot of close friends at the time or much to do other than softball, so I decided, why not? Everyone at the church was super kind and welcoming. The pastor was very sweet and so was his wife. They had a little welcome baggie for new members of the church with a cookie, a CD of the church band's music, and I think a pamphlet about the church. I made a couple friends that night and overall had a good time. I went back one more time for one of those youth group nights and everyone there was just as kind as they were the first time. Fast forward a few weeks after the first time I go and my mom passes away. I'm devastated. I'm having a horrible time coping and I feel essentially numb. A week after her passing, we have the wake, where family and friends come and visit the family/body and say goodbyes the day before the funeral, and I'm there with my family and just seeing all my mom's friends and acquaintances and trying to cope with what happened. The priest that was there from our church for the small service at the wake and for the funeral itself was quite cold and not very personable to us. I felt like he did not really care and that he did not want to be here. Out of nowhere, the pastor and his wife from the church I had gone to twice show up and are amazingly kind and supportive, and both give me a hug and hold my hand and pray with me for a while. It just blows me away how much these people who I have just met a month ago went out of their way to come support someone they've only met twice, when the priest that I had known all my life was only there because he had to be. This incident is what really turned me away from being in the church and religion altogether. That's my church drama, even if it is a little different than other posts on here. This was all the content I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the church drama, even though it was a bit more serious than usual. But I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.